On October 2, 1989, a chilling crime shook the orderly city-state of Singapore to its core. Liang Shan Shan, a 17-year-old student from Mayflower Secondary School, vanished without a trace, setting in motion one of the most perplexing and controversial murder cases in Singapore's history. Liang Shan Shan was born around 1972 in Sabah, Malaysia. She was the eldest of 7 children in her family, with 4 brothers and 2 sisters. In 1983, when Shan Shan was about 11 years old, her family immigrated to Singapore in search of better opportunities. However, the life that awaited young Shan Shan was far from the dream her family had envisioned. Upon arriving in Singapore, Shan Shan was adopted by the Yu family. This decision would have profound and tragic consequences for the young girl. The Yu family, rather than providing a loving home, saw Shan Shan as little more than a potential source of income. They treated her more like a servant than a daughter, often leaving her hungry and forcing her to cook meals for the family. The Yu couple had unstable jobs, and Shan Shan's adoptive mother was addicted to gambling, often playing mahjong all night and neglecting her family responsibilities. The Yu family's motives for adopting Shan Shan were far from altruistic. They had noticed her growing into a beautiful young woman and calculated that her looks could be used to benefit the family financially. Their ultimate goal was to have Shan Shan marry into a wealthy family, hoping to profit from such a union. This mercenary attitude towards the young girl would play a significant role in the tragedy that was to unfold. Despite the hardships at home, Shan Shan managed to excel at school. She was known for her cheerful and lively personality, her willingness to help others, and her active participation in school activities. She maintained excellent grades and was a popular student. However, beneath her smile lay deep scars from the abuse and exploitation she suffered at home. On that fateful day in October 1989, Liang Shan Shan, now a third-year art student at Mayflower Secondary School, followed her usual routine. She attended her classes and was last seen boarding her school bus at 1 p.m. Under normal circumstances, Shan Shan would have returned home to the family's Balestier Road flat by 1:20 p.m., but on this day, she never arrived. As the hours ticked by, Shan Shan's adoptive mother, Kwek Meng Get, grew increasingly worried. By 3 p.m., with no sign of Shan Shan, Kwek began contacting her daughter's friends. None of them had seen Shan Shan after school dismissal. The family's concern quickly turned to panic. Shan Shan's adoptive father, Leong Kon Sang, a contractor by profession, reported her missing to the police. The family put up a reward for any information about Shan Shan's whereabouts. They insisted to the authorities that Shan Shan was an obedient girl with no particular hobbies, who only occasionally went out with her female friends. They claimed there had been no family arguments prior to her disappearance. The school principal of Mayflower Secondary School, Tang Sui Che, questioned Shan Shan's classmates. They all confirmed that Shan Shan was last seen leaving school, and no suspicious persons had been spotted around the school compound or nearby areas. As days turned into weeks, hope began to fade. Then, on October 14th, 1989, 12 days after Shan Shan's disappearance, a grim discovery was made that would shock the nation. A group of national servicemen, undergoing training exercises at Yishun Industrial Park, stumbled upon a horrific scene in a forested vacant area. They found the highly decomposed body of a teenage girl. The discovery sent shockwaves through Singapore. How could such a crime occur in their safe, orderly society? The police were immediately called to the scene, and a team of investigators, including renowned forensic pathologist Professor Chow Tzi Cheng, rushed to examine the body. The scene that greeted them was gruesome. Several body parts were scattered around the area, which was frequently used for military training. Based on the state of decomposition, it was estimated that the victim had been dead for about 12 days, coinciding with the date of Shan Shan's disappearance. A school uniform blouse found nearby bore a name tag with Liang Shan Shan written on it, confirming the victim's identity. Shan Shan's skull was found about a meter away from her body. Professor Chow conducted a meticulous autopsy on Shan Shan's remains. The advanced state of decomposition and the missing body parts made determining the cause of death extremely challenging. However, Professor Chow did discover some crucial details. There were injuries to the right side of Shan Shan's ribcage and her right cheekbone. These injuries could have been caused by a fall or by an impact from a blunt, hard object. However, these injuries alone were not sufficient to cause death. The autopsy could not definitively determine whether Shan Shan's death was a result of suicide, murder, or accident. There were no strong signs of sexual assault, although this was difficult to ascertain due to the body's condition. However, Shan Shan's skirt showed signs of being forcibly pulled by someone, hinting at a possible struggle. As the investigation progressed, the police began interviewing Shan Shan's classmates and family members. One of her male classmates, Huang Chendong, provided a crucial piece of information. He reported seeing Shan Shan boarding her school bus around 1 p.m. on the day she disappeared. Importantly, he noted that Shan Shan was alone on the bus when it left the school. This information led the investigators to focus on the school bus driver. He was identified as Lei Ko, a 34-year-old Singaporean man who was married with one son and lived in Ang Mo Kio. Had been driving Shan Shan to school for the past 5 years. Lei Ko was brought in for questioning, and on October 18, 1989, he was officially arrested and charged with Shan Shan's murder. This charge was based solely on circumstantial evidence, as there was no direct evidence linking to Shan Shan's death. The case took another dramatic turn on November 8, 1989. Was charged with a second murder, that of 18-year-old Rohaya binti Muhammad Ali, a lounge waitress who had been found murdered on October 6, 1982, at a construction site in Ang Mo Kio. Rohaya had been stabbed several times in the throat, and her case had remained unsolved for 7 years. The investigation into Shan Shan's murder had led the police to connect to Rohaya's unsolved case, as he was found to be the last person seen with her as well. Was held in remand without bail for the 2 murder charges. A court order was issued for to undergo a psychiatric assessment to determine his mental state at the time of the offenses. Meanwhile, on October 22, 1989, Shan Shan's skeletal remains were returned to her family for cremation and funeral preparations. The legal proceedings against Lei Ko began in earnest on August 17, 1992. The prosecution, led by Deputy Public Prosecutor Jennifer Marie, presented their case against They relied heavily on circumstantial evidence, as there was no direct evidence linking to Shan Shan's death. The prosecution's case included several key points. First, they presented evidence that had forged an alibi. Despite being seen driving the school bus that Shan Shan last boarded, denied being there when Shan Shan left the school. He claimed that around 1 p.m., he was at a friend's workshop fixing the faulty brakes of his school bus. However, the mechanic, Taneng D, testified in court that while did come to his workshop that day, it was at 9 a.m., not 1 p.m., as had claimed. Secondly, and perhaps most damning, was the fact that was able to lead police investigators to the location where Shan Shan's school bag and textbooks were abandoned. This location was a short distance from where her body was discovered, providing a strong connection between and Shan Shan's death. The prosecution also presented testimony from Shan Shan's classmates. They revealed that Shan Shan had expressed discomfort about O's behavior towards her. According to her classmates, O would sometimes verbally harass Shan Shan, complimenting her on her slim figure and telling her she was beautiful and attractive. There was even an incident where O had attempted to take a photo of Shan Shan. One of Shan Shan's classmates, Pan Fenyi, provided particularly incriminating testimony. She stated that after Shan Shan's disappearance and death, O had contacted her and asked her to lie to the authorities and in court. He wanted her to falsely claim that she had never seen Shan Shan boarding her school bus on the day she disappeared. Despite this compelling circumstantial evidence, Oh's defense team argued that his police statements were not made voluntarily. They claimed that Oh had been abused by his police interrogators during questioning before he complied and gave incriminating statements. On September 11, 1992, in a surprising turn of events, Oh Lei-ko was acquitted of Shan Shan's murder. The trial judge, Amarjit Singh, found that there was insufficient evidence to convict Oh. Given that the prosecution's case was based entirely on circumstantial evidence, Singh decided not to call Oh to the stand to give his defense and granted him a discharge amounting to an acquittal. However, Oh's relief was short-lived. The prosecution quickly filed an appeal against this decision. They argued that Oh should be required to give his evidence on the stand, citing several key areas of the circumstantial evidence that called for Oh's explanation. These included his fake alibi, the lies he told to the police and Shan Shan's family and acquaintances, and his attempt to persuade witnesses to lie on his behalf. The Court of Appeal heard the prosecution's case and agreed that the circumstantial evidence against Oh was sufficient to form a mens rea case. In March 1994, they allowed the prosecution's appeal and ordered Oh to be taken back to the High Court for a retrial. The retrial began on April 27, 1994, with Judicial Commissioner Amarjit Singh once again presiding over the case. This time, Singh called upon Oh to take the stand and give his defense. However, in a move that would prove crucial to the outcome of the case, Oh chose to remain silent. He did not call any witnesses to his defense. Oh's lawyer, Ramesha Pillai, argued that the evidence fell short of the legal requirements to substantiate a charge of murder. Pillai cited the prosecution's lack of direct evidence to show that Shan Shan's death was caused by unlawful violence. However, Deputy Public Prosecutor Jennifer Marie rebutted this argument. She pointed out that Oh was able to lead the police to the area where the victim's belongings were found, that he had tried to establish a false alibi, that he had told lies to Shan Shan's parents and friends to distance himself from any guilt related to Shan Shan's death, and that Oh had attempted to persuade trial witnesses to lie that Shan Shan never boarded his bus that day. On May 3, 1994, Judicial Commissioner Amarjit Singh delivered his verdict. In his judgment, Singh stated that he was satisfied that Oh's failure to give evidence arose from a consciousness of guilt in the face of the circumstantial evidence. He drew an adverse inference from Oh's silence. Singh also accepted the prosecution's arguments and determined that none of the circumstantial evidence showed any signs of Oh's supposed innocence after reviewing the whole case. In his verdict, Singh cited, "I am constrained to draw an irresistible inference that you, Oh, were the last person to see the deceased, Shan Shan, and you had intentionally caused her death and that the death was not suicidal or accidental. Although the prosecution was unable to identify the unlawful act, it is not necessary, in my opinion, always to do so." With these words, 38-year-old Oh Lei-ko was found guilty of murder in relation to 17-year-old Liang Shan Shan's death. Consequently, he was sentenced to death. Oh, who had been smiling, chatting with the guards, and waving at his family and friends prior to the verdict, was reportedly shocked and filled with horror after the guilty verdict was interpreted to him in Hokkien. Before Oh was taken out of the courtroom, he shouted in Hokkien, "It is unfair. It is unfair." After Oh was sentenced to death for Shan Shan's murder, the prosecution withdrew the second murder charge against Oh for killing Rohaya binti Muhammad Ali back in 1982. The case of Oh Lei-ko was reported to be the first case where a person acquitted of a crime was sentenced to death for the same offense charged in a retrial. Oh's conviction, based on the exercise of the right to remain silent and circumstantial evidence, was widely reported and reviewed by many lawyers who paid attention to the case and its unusual nature. Legal experts analyzed Oh's case and stated that while the right to remain silent was a valid legal option in Singapore, it deprived a defendant of the chance to rebut the prosecution's case. They noted that the judge is allowed to make an adverse inference from the defendant's silence, which may potentially cause a defendant to be found guilty of whichever crime he was charged for in a court of law. Oh's case was also the second conviction of murder secured solely based on circumstantial evidence in Singapore's legal history. The first was the high-profile Sunny Ang case in 1965, in which Ang was convicted of his girlfriend Jenny Chuk's murder in the absence of the body, also based on circumstantial evidence. The case of the former school bus driver would become one of the few cases where a defendant was convicted as charged, after choosing to remain silent and not putting up their defense. It highlighted how Singapore's criminal law made it difficult for the guilty to go free, based on the established legal principles of drawing an adverse inference from the defendant's decision to remain silent, and the prosecution's right to proceed with a case against the suspect based on any tangible evidence to back the charge. On July 29, 1994, Liang Ko's appeal against his sentence was dismissed by the Court of Appeal. The three judges, Chief Justice Yong Pung Hao and Judges of Appeal L.P. Thean and M. Karthagesu, unanimously agreed that the prosecution's case against based on circumstantial evidence, was strong enough to prove O's guilt, coupled with O's decision to waive his right to make his defense. Was reportedly angered at his failure to escape the death sentence. Over 10 of his family members, including his wife who wept in court, were present to hear the verdict. Amnesty International, an international human rights group, appealed to the government of Singapore for clemency and asked that O's sentence be commuted to life imprisonment. O also submitted a plea for presidential clemency, but the petition was denied on April 5, 1995. On May 19, 1995, 39-year-old Liang Ko was hanged at Changi Prison at dawn. His lawyer, Peter Fernando, who represented O during his appeal process, later stated in a 2003 interview that O was one of his most difficult clients. Fernando said that O kept insisting on his innocence and never showed any remorse for his crime, even up to the moment of his hanging. Fernando stated that he had no doubt that justice was indeed served in this case due to his sympathy over Liang Shan Shan's unfortunate and vicious death. The case of Liang Shan Shan's murder left a lasting impact on Singapore's legal landscape. It highlighted the potential consequences of exercising the right to remain silent in court and the weight that circumstantial evidence can carry in a murder trial. The case continues to be studied and discussed in legal circles, serving as a precedent for similar cases. But beyond the legal implications, the case of Liang Shan Shan serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability,